I had a rock band for like a hot minute. I played bass guitar.
Welcome everybody. I'm here with the rock star himself. You are a rock star. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you started this way, Charles. We didn't even prep this, but when I was in college, I went to a little university in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I had a rock band for like a hot minute.
Yeah.
I played bass guitar.
What was the band?
It's called Oxygen. Very cool name.
Oxygen?
I think I still have a t-shirt. I can try to look it up for you.
That is awesome. So he is a rock star.
It was a big deal. It was a very big deal.
So you and John from Onyx were in a band together, right?
Well, I don't want to blow my horn, but John might have been a little bit bigger deal rock band than mine. I think our biggest venue, I think we had 500 people to one concert, and I knew I'd peaked. So, anyway, rockstar days are now done.
So those of you who don't know, this is Benjamin Carlson with Long Miles Coffee. He's got an awesome project. He does really great things in Burundi and abroad. There's lots of crazy places and stories we're going to hear. And I'm just going to start off with an easy question.
Okay.
What in the world got you into coffee in the first place?
Oh, man. I think like way back origin, like Wolverine origin story kind of start was at university. I just needed to pay for college.
Yeah.
So I started as a barista, and this is back in the days. I don't know how old you are, Charles, but like
45.
I was in the days where I was like the frothier pile of cappuccino you could get kind of made you a better barista. So I was the frothy barista guy.
So the milk
But
trucks.
I moved to South Africa and worked for a NGO right after college.
Holy smokes.
And when I was in South Africa, this is in the early 2000s, there was really no good coffee. And so it was a selfish ambition to be able to drink better coffee. And I always kind of typify
That's a good ambition.
I'm like, I just need better coffee for myself. And so everything I've done is out of selfishness, really.
Yeah.
I just want to drink better coffee. But I was doing these mentoring sessions at coffee shops, and I'm like, you got to do better than this. So I started doing some consulting and training and importing and roaster training.
Whoa, wait.
Yeah.
You just jumped from like making milk drinks to importing? How'd you get to there? There's got to be
Too much confidence. I don't know.
It's like, I can do this.
To be honest, I had a real passion for the business idea of coffee. Like I love the intricacies of everything from the baristas to the roasting, and then finding out where coffee comes from. Like I was like, I grew up in Wisconsin, and now I'm in South Africa, and now I'm like really starting to understand the industry of coffee, and so then I was just starting to absorb as much information as I could. I became a Q grader.
Yeah, that's definitely
And I did a little bit of roasting back when I was in the US. And so then I was like, well, I got my Q now. I've done a little bit of roasting. I'll just teach other people how to do it. So I just started. So I started helping on importing barista programs, training videos, and all this. Like just started. And then Christy, my wife, said, well, you're having a lot more fun doing coffee, and you're getting all these offers of coffee jobs. Why don't we do that instead of NGO stuff?
Yeah.
I was like, no, this is just a fun hobby, and now I'm drinking better coffee. But what really tipped the scales into like full-time coffee was Burundi's coffee industry got privatized in 2007, sort of, kind of 2007 to 2010. It used to be a state-owned industry, and after it was privatized because of a World Bank grant to the country, now you could have private, and so you could find micro lots and you could export. And so I was able to go in as a consultant and kind of travel the country to figure out, is there good coffee in Burundi? How do we get it out? And where's the best coffee?
Wow.
So I did this consulting job, and then I was like, as I was there, I'm like, I should do this. I should move to Burundi and just find better coffee.
So you must be like a really good natural teacher too. Like you want to teach. Like so many people just, you get the knowledge for yourself and you're just going to do the thing, right? You're gonna do the importing, or you're gonna make the drinks. It's a different passion to like want to actually teach others. So kudos to you to take that step. Like that's a big step to like not just absorb the information, be like, I want to share this stuff too.
I think there's a natural. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a great teacher. I wouldn't say that like
Some of the best students, you need to raise your hands and
yeah.
say how good of a teacher he is.
It's like this is my latte art. Thanks a lot, Ben. No, I think though that I think there's a part of me that intrinsically wants to see a better world. And it seems so cliche.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why am I doing long miles? Like why do this? And I'm like, well, if you can make some kind of a change in one community or a part of the world and you can actually make a change, like why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
And so I think making changes and seeing like the needle move on something in the world is special.
Mm.
And coffee is just an awesome tool to do it with.
I would totally relate to that. Like that was honestly a big part of our story for Third Wave Water. Being able to make a difference at all.
Yeah.
It's kind of addictive where you're like, oh my goodness, I actually made a difference for somebody to enjoy something.
Yeah.
It's not just me like making something in my own kitchen or whatever. I admit, like for Taylor and I, that's a big deal for us. Like we want to see people have a difference on their experience. So that's
Well,
that's
well, I think like you've done that with an experience, but I think also it's one of the things that we've connected on over the years is you've actually helped improve farmers' lives in Africa
oh,
because of third wave water. Because when we've
it's
used
crazy to hear someone say
third, but I mean it's true because what I was using tap water to cup,
yeah.
and our coffee was tasting fine. I mean, it's like, it's good, you know. It's like, and I had a roaster come, and he's like, Ben, your coffee, when we sample roast it and cup it at our lab and then brew it, like, is exceptional. Coffee cupping here in your lab is fine. And I'm like, I don't know what we're maybe start roasting, and then we figured out that we're just it's the water. The water was literally causing probably a 2 to sometimes 3 point drop in cupping points.
That's insane.
So just by then talking with you, figuring out solutions of how to integrate third wave water into like a cupping profile, it's almost like cheating the system. It's like it allows you to taste the coffee how much closer to how it's actually going to taste at a roast level at a roaster than you normally would get.
Yeah, we're super humbled to hear any feedback and
Yeah.
and honestly humbled to be a part of your journey, especially out in remote regions of the world. Like we started to be kind of like this thing that people would use at home
Yeah.
and cafes is kind of a whole other thing, but to be in like a place that's like a remote region where you're trying to test stuff is
Yeah.
that's awesome. So a little birdie told me that you're doing something in, is it West Burundi?
Western Uganda.
Western Uganda.
Yeah.
Sorry, Western Uganda. What
Yeah.
in the world is going on in Western Uganda?
That's a good question. What is going on in Western Uganda? There's a region. Most of the time, people know, if you know coffee from Uganda, it's Mount Elgon, Sippy Falls. That is the quintessential, or Robusta.
Okay.
But I think it's probably one of the newest emerging markets. Like really,
Oh, wow.
is the Rwenzori Mountains in Uganda. And
Rwenzori Mountains.
yep, Rwenzori Mountains. It's this mountain range that separates Uganda from the Congo. I think I've got something with the Congo. I think that's coming, you know, because where we work in Burundi is right next to the Congo, and now we're literally on the mountain range where rebels from the Congo like come back and forth over these Rwenzori Mountains. So part of the reason that we're there though is because nobody's gone there. It's a harder place to get to. It's for whatever reason, because of the instability of the region,
Yeah.
it's gotten very little help, very little like NGO work, very little aid. So we're looking at like farmers that've got beautiful SL coffee, and nobody's ever heard of it because it just kind of gets absorbed into the system and sold as like fodder, like triage.
Wow.
And so So we decided, a few years back, there was a coup in Burundi back in 2015, and
Wow.
and our daughter was born in the coup, and it was just all this drama, and we had to actually. It's like the first time I ever had a little taste of what it would be like to be a refugee. So we had to like escape to the mountains, and we were living up in the mountains in this little house, and because there was like war going on, and we decided that we needed to like maybe de-risk long miles. So we thought, oh, go next to the Congo in Uganda. That'll de-risk it, right? So,
You're like, wait, what did I do? I don't know.
well, I don't understand. At least we didn't go to Goma. Anyway, but the birth of going to Uganda was out of somewhat de-risking, but also about of kind of what you asked at the start was like, what if you could make a difference? What if your model of doing something works? Maybe it's not like the solution for all of poverty and all of the environment, but it's starting to
Chipping away
yeah,
something.
it's starting to change at least some communities' socioeconomic lifestyle, their environment, their schooling, their healthcare, the just moving a poverty needle out of poverty.
Yeah.
So oh, what if we could do this same thing somewhere else? And so we saw Western Uganda as an opportunity to replicate Long Mile. And so we built a washing station.
Wow. So you already built it? Like
Yep.
when if I'm a purchaser watching this,
Yes.
when would you expect to be like in
Well,
auction for it?
there is somebody on this wall of yours who's about to get some of our first natural
Are
micro
you allowed to
lots.
point at it?
I'm not gonna point, but let's just say Onyx might be there. So, but Onyx will be getting the first. They'll be landing some of the first micro
Oh.
lots, and then that was like our first run. But we consider this year as like our first full-on year
Okay.
of Long Miles Uganda, and we're right in the middle of the fly crop right now. There's 2 crops in Uganda, so the team is there, busy working. Good job, team. And lunar washing station.
Wow. That's
but-
exciting.
Yeah, there's yeah, but it's what I found out though is that Uganda's not Burundi, and you'd think that it would be a no-brainer, but I think a lot of people in the world lump East Africa together. And even though I've been living in Africa since 2001, it's
So 23 years you've lived in.
yep. I just did a stint in Minnesota for a few years, but now we're living in Kenya.
Okay.
But even though living in Africa and East Africa, I knew there's a lot of differences, but when actually we started in Uganda, I was like, wow, it's a whole different world. So it's been a big learning curve, I think. Not always easy to do.
So I'll ask you one final question and we can go whatever
Sure.
rabbit trail you want. If you were going to talk to yourself 5 years ago, I almost feel like I need to go farther since you've been in Africa for over 20 years now. We'll go to 20 years. If you're going to tell yourself 20 years ago something you know now in coffee, what would you tell yourself?
I think there's a real, I feel like one of the biggest problems in coffee is access to finance for producers.
Oh, okay.
There's environmental things, there's planting trees, there's poverty, there's market access, there's like so many issues. But I think when it really comes down to it, I think having the ability to access working capital, and this is coming from me as a coffee producer,
Yeah.
and knowing my friends and neighbors as coffee producers, like it is almost impossible to do good quality work and make impact into your family, and if you're a producer that works with other farmers, their lives, if you don't have working capital. And the world is set up to make sure that farmers can't get that easily, and when they do, it's such a high interest rate because they say it's such high risk that all your margin goes to a bank or financial institution, and the power strings are so pulling that as a producer, you're at the mercy, and really
Your
you're
access to
yeah,
capital.
your access to capital. So if I was gonna go back to early Ben, I'd start working on a financing model and a fund to be able to say, I want to help producers and coffee farmers around the world have access to capital.
Yeah.
I think I w- I w- I wish I was a smarter guy back 20 years ago that I could create something like that. And I think
But
that
you are a
that's
pretty
something.
smart guy because you figured out and you ran on a mission that's taken you to where you are today. So don't sell yourself too short.
Well, maybe at right place at the right time too. Yeah, but it's I don't know. I think that it's like when another thing that I thought about is like, man, would I do things differently too?
Yeah.
And I don't think so because I've made a lot of mistakes, but it's now taught me what not to do. So a lot of times people ask me like, "Oh, what do I do this for this in coffee and that in coffee?" And like, I wouldn't know if I wouldn't have made so many mistakes.
Okay.
And
Oh,
that's
100%. That is
yeah,
learning.
isn't it?
Yeah. So many people will not take that step to actually learn and see what the questions and mistakes are even going to cause.
And I saw like you've got some new light roast, dark roast, medium roast, third wave water.
Yeah. So
What is that?
we have 6 total profiles now. Light, medium, dark is it's honestly it's speaking their language. Most people just don't know what like classic didn't mean anything. I'm gonna
Yep.
get a classic water profile. What is that?
Yeah.
So we turn that into the water profile. So it's kind of classic light roast to try
Yep.
to add the words together. And then medium honestly is in the middle. Buffer I think plays a bigger part of it, even though the recipes are a little different. Light and medium are still kind of the SCA, like we're at an SCA event today.
Yeah.
They still fit within an SCA water profile.
Okay.
And then dark is honestly for people that like dark roast coffees, they don't like the same things other people, and that's totally fine. You like dark roast, I like light roast. Who cares? We all like coffee, and we're enjoying it.
Yeah.
So it has a bigger buffer to kind of leave behind a lot of the tasting notes that are more for kind of dark roast drinkers. Usually more chocolate, molasses, those type of things. Where they'll taste, and I'm sure you've heard this, they'll taste a light roast coffee, and they'll be like, "Tastes like a tea. Like,
Yep.
what is this? I don't
Yep.
like a tea." And so we wanted to make a water profile that matched that coffee profile a little bit better.
That's really cool. And you guys are so much smarter than I am. Oh my gosh. So smart.
Just like you, man. We're just learning as we go. Like, what's the language that people want to kind of
Yep.
be able to speak to, and then we try to meet them where they're at. That's just one of our biggest goals. So. Well, everybody, we thank you so much for joining us. This will be posted again later, so you can repost
Yeah.
it. We'll repost it. But thank you so much for joining. This is the first live event at this crazy event with, like I said earlier, the rock star Benjamin Carlson. We're honored to have you, brother. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for being a partner.
Thank you so much, man. We'll see you next time.